really excited to have you all here, gather the community again. In the next 2 days we will listen to very interesting topics, share ideas, share knowledge. So we are really looking forward to the next 2 days. One small thing, please every speaker stick to the time slot that we gave and the time that we assigned to you to make everything run smoothly, because otherwise we go too far and we need to leave sharp 6. Yeah. So please consider the time when you are presenting here. And one more thing, we will be taking pictures during the conference, so if everyone doesn't want to be shown in social media or posted, please let me know so I know that we don't use those pictures publicly. And besides that, welcome. I hope you all enjoy and we all take the most out of this opportunity. And now I will give the microphone to Norbert. I want to thank the iDempiere team, Jana, Reka, Norbert, for this amazing organization, and now it's your turn.
Thanks. Hello everyone. I'm fifth time in the conference, and this time I'm organizer, so it's quite a different approach. First time I was in Krakow, and second time too. And that was interesting because we meet first time Diego, Carlos, probably I found good friends. That is important part of this community also. And each year, and then later in Lyon and in Bahrain, we just meet together, and each time we have a better partnership, friendship, and so that is also important part from my side. So what we try to do here, as Diego mentioned, we are trying to collect some interesting topics, like legacy topics like hosting, workforce, and others. Also, my favorites are usability of the system, UX, and other front-end solution, and so. So hope everyone found this topic and will join and benefit from this event. So tomorrow we have the same conference, and Friday we plan to visit the city at 9 o'clock morning. We meet at the hotel morning, and we will walk through 3-4 hours in the city. So if you want, then you can join. So I'm happy again, and Carlos, you can start the first topic.
Usually we start the conference talking about what happened in iDempiere since the last conference. And my point of view is usually about new features and code and this stuff. Yeah. But there are other things happening too, apart from code. Okay, let's do it. Okay. What's new? So we have a lot of things going on. release 10 that was peace, and release and release 11 that is synergy, and in December we made release 12. So a lot of things. I collected some statistics from Jira and GitHub. So this time the community created 917 tickets. That's a lot. And we solved 886. And at this moment in Jira we have 654 open tickets. That's a lot of work. 38 of those are in peer review. So the peer review is that they have some solution pending to review or pending to finish. But it's, I don't know, I find that a lot of work. In GitHub I found that we made 1,034 commits during these 2 years, and we solved around 755 tickets. And I checked the percentage to see if there is a Pareto rule there, and yeah, we have 7 committers made 89% of commits. Yeah, and that order: Carlos, Hensing, Nicolas, Peter, Suri, Diego, and Kip. These 7 made 90% of commits. In total, we had 30 contributors, 30 committers in these 2 years. 8 of them were first-time committers. And during these 2 years, also we added three new core developers. Initially, we were just Hensing and me. Then Diego was a committer, and this last year, I think it was, we added Deepak, Nicolas, and Suri. Yeah. So the team is expanding, and it's nice to have more hands there. Another thing that we are trying to do better is to document new features. Yeah? So when new features are coming, we always ask for please create a wiki page explaining what we are doing. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but most of the time it's happening. So we documented 105 new features. In release 10, we documented 41, then 34 for the next, and 21 for the next, and for the upcoming release, 13 for next December probably, we have already new features. Yeah? All this is documented in the wiki, in these pages. These 3 are the new features pages, and the 3 above are change logs. Change log that I am maintaining around every week or every 2 weeks. I do a new upgrade to the maintained release, and I keep the change log in these pages. Yeah. At this moment, we are just maintaining the release 12. So around every week or 2 weeks, there is new things. There are new things coming to release 12. Mostly because our expectation is that it's a stable release. So mostly in release 12 we add bug fixes and minor improvements, not big disruptive things. Yeah? And the big things goes to next release. If you like the statistics also, you can see the link below there, Open Hub. It has also some nice insights about iDempiere. bring the most prominent things. Yeah? One thing that we did is that we jumped from Java 11 to Java 17, and we are trying to keep on sync with at least our idea is to support at least 2 releases of Java. So that's why we are not in the last one, because now it's Java 21, the last one. And recently we added support to IntelliJ. Yeah? That's interesting. We have always developed in Eclipse, but many developers prefer other platforms, and it was very difficult to develop in other things. But now we support IntelliJ. I think Murillo also mentioned that you support, or you have changed it to support Visual Studio.
Yes.
So there is now more choices to develop in case somebody prefer another. And another thing that we noticed is that the installation is difficult for developers. So we are trying to ease the way to install development environments. We are working on that. It's not complete, but we are trying also to do scripts that automate the installation of development. Okay, and about usability, there are a few things, but mostly themes. We adopted a new theme. The last one was Ruiz, I think, and now we are using Ice Blue Compact. It was a change almost mandatory because the CK didn't support anymore the old theme, so we needed to move to a new theme. And we have added some tickets to allow easy changes to the theme. So there has been always the possibility to create a new theme and use it. Yeah? But that sometimes creates problems when a new version comes, you need to adapt all your theme to the new theme, etc. So what we have made is to allow the small changes to the theme in several ways. Yeah? One is to add a zip file, I think, mentioning small changes. Nicolas implemented another list to inject in database. You register things to change, for example, images or CSS files. You can change. I don't remember, but it was images was your main problem. So you can switch images on the theme without creating a new theme. The official theme you can do changes. Yeah, that's something we want. And another thing that Hansen added recently too, it was mobile UI enhancements. So every time I think the iDempiere is easier to use in mobile. I think it's really usable now, mobile. I have created documents, completed, the document things just in the phone. So it works nice. Let's see. In the functional side, I think this was EPAC, credit management. Yeah. The iDempiere had this hard coded, and many times when people find the need to change something that is in code, probably the best way to do it is to make it configurable or make there is a factory for that, and you can inject different ways to manage credit. We have used that, it's very useful. Yeah. We have also a tax lookup. The same thing about credit management. The tax it was hard coded before, but now you can replace it and create new tax rules to inject in the for a different method. Okay, this is about accounting. The deductible and not deductible input tax. So it was added recently. And DPAC did a big work. The last committee, it was a big thing about adding how many dimensions? Seven new dimensions. So we have now employee. It's a lot of new dimensions. This is the new features page. We create this every. And here you find the links for every documentation. So Deepak added. We need to change that. This is already we forgot the now part. We have charge, asset, department, warehouse, employee, cost center, attributes and instance, tax, and there are four text fields that are for like wildcards for use for anything. So that's nice because it expands the accounting a lot. Before if somebody needed a cost center, then it used activity. Most people use activity for that. But then if a company needed activity and cost center, you could easily.
Department and the cost center.
Yeah, department was also like organization, and now it has structure. Its own dimension. So.
But there's also user 1 ID and user 2 ID, right? These two
Yeah, yeah.
fields. So they are also quite useful for cost center. We use it for profit center. So like SAP, right? Cost center, profit center. There's two. Yeah.
There have been always four wildcards. There are two that are related to elements and two that are columns, any column.
Right.
And now we have is four, but this is free text, like new fields to text to the fact accounts. We find that useful mostly for customizations. The user will not notice that. In customizations, you can add different editors for this different purposes. Yeah? Okay. And we have also this is Norbert. He did several controls to avoid closing a period when there are open documents. That's nice. Sometimes people just close the period and forget that they have documents there. Yeah, and it was not just that, there were more controls added around that. Yeah. Functionally too, we had production and bank statement didn't have the document type, and that makes it a bit difficult to manage, for example, the numbering of documents and other stuff. So it was added to it, document types. So now this also enables potentially to have different types of production orders and different types of bank statement types. Yeah. Okay. Nicholas recently added this reactive documentation the first month is half of the documents are mistakes. So this helps. You can allow it to reactivate, fix the error, and continue. But for example, that's something that we noticed. Invoices are problematic because in most countries they are government controlled.
Yeah, regulations.
So because of that, we didn't make this just everybody can reactivate. We added a flag in document type that says which document type to be reactivated. Not every invoice, just the invoices that I want to allow them.
Yeah.
Most countries sales invoice you cannot modify a sales invoice.
But if there are dependent documents like an allocation to the invoice or payment, can you still reactivate it or
No,
that will be blocked, right?
that's part of the control there. It says no, this payment is allocated. So you need to go and deallocate it first and then you can do it. Yeah, same for invoices. If the invoice is already paid, you cannot reactivate it. Things like that. This is another that added not that I think the document-based type groups. So it's not something simple. We have the document-based types, and we added a way to group that. And that's interesting because we have now a window. We have now this window here. This window allows to close and open accounting periods. Yeah? So you can see all the accounting periods and the status here. But also you can filter by this document-based type group that overlap. So you can have, for example, inventory. Inventory document types, and the user from inventory can come here, filter by inventory, and close or open the inventory documents. Just that part. So that's the idea. That's the most important usage of this field. Okay? And okay, in the country table, we added more classifications. There are a lot of standards for country codes. Yeah? So what we did was to add 2 new standards in the country and fill that. I think Nicolas also did a deep review of the names and translations of every country and fixed some mistakes that we had. And also we found that we had countries that already disappeared were still there, so we activated those, and there were 2 countries that were new. We added that, so the country table now is clear and very good shape, and it has the different codes that are established by other entities. This one is nice. The import CSV, yeah. This is a lot used the import. But now we support also Excel files. So in most of the time the users needed to take an Excel file, convert it to CSV, and then import it. Yeah? But now we can import directly from this to that. Yeah? Excel, the old Excel and the new Excel. That just works for templates, yeah? It doesn't work for the direct loader, no. You need to create a template to use Excel files. And two more things. This is mostly about security. It's a common problem, I think, for all of us. That you have a production implementation, and you have a testing environment, development environment. I don't know, I think everybody has, some point of time you have tried to do a test and you do it in production.
We always use the ZK browser title to differentiate, yeah, but
Yeah.
look carefully.
That was also common, but it's very small thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You cannot see it. So what did we add for that is two things. One is that you can hear in the preference set read only session. And what I do is set this in all the production, on all my production users. No, I am support in a production system. I am not intended to create documents or anything there. So I set this preference, and then I cannot do anything there. If I try to create a new record, it will say this is read only. I cannot run processes, etc. But the other thing also we added is this to visually differentiate environments. Like I could say that before we just used this one, the title, but now we can change the color of this. Yeah?
Also.
And is I think it's in the end it was CK.
We can change image logo also.
This image.
Yeah.
But I think in the end it was just a CK change, the browser background color. This is a system configurator that says the background color is green. So
It's not using the system window. It's not using the system in system administrator, the system window when you say that if it is production test. It's not using that. I'm asking.
let me tell you that it's very simple. I think it's not. In Jira, we have this flag here, this label, to mark the tickets that are pending for documentation. And this one is not documented yet. Yeah. So here is this. There is a new sysconfig that is say kdex.background color. So it's just this one. Let me change this here. And I don't know which color.
Choose a nice color, please.
Maybe it will look very ugly.
Sexy color.
No, I need to log out.
Yes.
Cache.
No, it's log out. What is this color? I don't know.
It's like gray. That color is like gray, I think.
So you know the hexacode for the color?
That's a common color to use. I think it's a gray. No, but it doesn't.
Do you know red? I don't know. FF? Lulu? Zero, zero?
That's why.
Okay, so this is one. And the other one is this one. There is a
So that is, I was asking if that
That's
use if in the window, if you go to system window, you can. That is not it's different.
my fault. Is that that's the problem of not having documentation.
Guys, this is
We changed the name at last minute.
Carlos, but this is the typical problem for usability. So probably you can pick up the color directly, not by hex code in the future.
Yes.
But
I think we can.
because the color is maybe better in the
We
window.
going to do that very soon.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
nice.
Very good.
Yes.
If you don't see that in your, if you do a mistake now, it's very. You cannot blame. No, I didn't notice that I was in production.
But it's separated of that configuration.
Yes. What you do is when you copy the environment, you copy the database to test, and you add this key to test. Yeah. So you know that you are. And there is another one here. It was Nicolas, yeah, Nicolas, text message. So you can say, welcome to test environment. Yeah. And
In the description or in the value.
no. I made it. What you have here is a. No. I did it right, but in the wrong place. Yeah. There. Welcome to test environment. Yeah. But this is not just a. If you put a message there, it will show the message. But you can also put this the search key of a message, and then you have translation there. Yeah. It was both ways. So that's the idea to avoid that we do this kind of mistakes. And this I also find it very handy to make read-only sessions, and I just enable that when now that I need to create something. So it's okay. On the technical side, we added new types. This is very interesting. We added the JSON field type.
JSON field type is
We added the JSON field type, and it's just a JSON file, but it opens a lot of possibilities because you know JSON, you can have not so structured data, but it's a structure, and you can have trees and many things there. So I think you are using extensive data.
They are sponsored but not using it. They have upgrades. But plan. Yes.
Yeah, so JSON. And we added also an image URL. That was Hensing added that. The image URL is nice because it's a string, but it is shown in the window like an image. So it automatically shows the image. Shows the image. And when the user click on that, you can change the URL, and then it's done. And the image is also shown in info windows, in reports, right? It's shown everywhere. Norbert here also added the date range. Yeah. This is a nice improvement. Yeah. Every time we need a date range, trial balance. Here, you have a date from and date to, and they added this field here. Yeah. So you can say I want the before this date, or I want between this and this, or I want the previous month.
The best is quick.
Or previous 3 months.
But we have a big change here again, so I will show tomorrow some of them. Very big changes.
Yeah.
It's you can predefine the ranges like Black Friday, this year, previous year, and so, and you can compare them in the dashboards. So next level, I think.
Okay. That's date range components. The image also hangs in under this. Yeah. We have the URL field type. So you can put there HTTP/image. Yeah. But if you have the image in the attachment of a record, then there is also a new way to put a URL, kind of a URL there saying this is the image of this record, the attachment with this name. And it gets the image from the attachments. Yeah? I see that maybe you are interested. You can have your example. You can have the products are wines, and you have in the attachment the pictures of the wine. Yeah. So you can make you can print that in the invoice, or you can show it in info window. Because there is a URL type now to extract the attachment and put it there.
It came in our case when we have customer with flower business, and the flowers is always nice and colorful, but you need to have a picture, but it is only one identifier, like exact pictures from Netherlands API market, and you have this picture that you can pick this material. So this is useful, that or the invoice or any other documents. Also same for grid and other places.
Yeah. So this is combined, yeah, this new field type, but also you can have the URL pointing to an attachment. This one is also a big one. We added a new type that is the UUID. We already have, every table has a UUID. Yeah? When we migrated to iDempiere, every table has an ID.
No, there may be
No,
many is not
yeah.
like accessibility.
Most tables have an ID, and the tables that didn't have an ID needed to have several parent keys making a composite ID. And we added to every table, we added an UUID, but we were not using this UUID like a key. It's just like an alternate key. What we did here is to enable tables, to create new tables with UUID as the primary key. So we don't need IDs for these tables. And there are a couple now in core. That makes it easier. For example, we don't need centralized IDs for that. Yeah? And the UUID doesn't need to get a sequence. So you also release one of the contention problems there, getting sequence for every record. So this is useful here in the UUID keys, and that enabled that every of those tables that we didn't have with ID, there were a lot of functionalities that didn't work without the ID. Yeah? For example, you could not get an attachment. You could not have an attachment on user roles because the user role didn't have an ID. But now with this approach here, you can have the attachment with the UUID. Yeah? Attachment,
change log.
Change log. Ah, yeah, the change log. Yeah, that was a common question. Who deleted the role of this user, or who added this role?
Access division.
And now you can add change log to these tables. Okay. And yeah, and I think the way to create new tables now in iDempiere has changed a lot. But what we use mostly now is this create complete table. Yeah. So now we create these tables like this. My new table. And give a name. And custom table. And here you select the initial fields that you want in the table. And now if you say don't create a key column, this will create a UUID table. Yeah? You just need to uncheck this, and it will not create the ID, but it will make the table with UUID.
Carlos, a question here. If you take UUID as your primary key, and if you go to that object in the window and then you click on, on the right upper side, then you see the UUID there. Is that how it works?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you. We created this table. To develop this, we created test UU basic table. This is a window. And master detail to here. So this is a UUID table, and you come here.
Okay.
And if you take the select here, the select is based on UUID. Yeah. And of course, if you use the primary key of this table is UUID, then the tables that have foreign keys must be a foreign UUID. So there are new data types also about table search, table direct and search UUID.
Can you disable if you already have a table and you want to disable an ID? Can you disable?
That's very tricky. You can do that for the table if it doesn't have any children.
Yeah, but I think for example a clean installation. If you wanna start with dropping all the IDs or inactivating all the IDs, so they are going to start doing that foreign with the UU.
No, that's a tricky way. Yeah, we cannot take C order, for example, and make it UU.
Yeah, okay.
To do that, we would need to take all the foreign keys in all the C order line and change it to UUID foreign key. So that's very difficult. So we are doing this is for new tables, but the old tables keep working always.
You still using the version 4 UUID?
Sorry?
The UUID is the version 4?
Yes.
Have you considered upgrading to version 7 that is sortable?
We just use there are two ways. Sometimes we use the UUID function from the database in Postgres and Oracle. And in some cases we use the UUID that Java provides. So to do that, we would need to change those 2 points. Yeah. It's a database function. If we can change that, if you consider that's good, we can open a ticket.
Yeah, I think with a sortable UUID, we have smaller indexes, and you also can sort by set using just the UUID.
Yeah, but it's possible. But we need to see But those are the 2 points. In case you want to change that, there is a database function, generate UUID, and there is a UUID in the PO class, but it's using Java UUID generator. Okay, here, this is another that the list, when you have a list of table direct, it doesn't show the inactive records. But sometimes you need the inactive records for reporting or etc. whatever. So Nicolas had this need and added a flagging reference that says this reference shows inactive records. And you can now use that. You need that.
It does not work in CSV.
CSV import. I'm not sure. If it doesn't work, it's open a file. No, it does work. I don't know. What else? Support quick info widget for info windows. Okay. So you know what that you can add very useful information here.
Yeah.
What we call the quick info. Now that is available also in info windows. When you have an info window,
You're a system.
yours. Like here, yeah. You can click here and get information here about the record that I chose. But also, if this is multi, you can have information about the several records. For example, the sum of this or home, sum, etc. Yeah? In the info side. That's very nice to have also. The status line as dashboard widget. Yeah, this is also something that Norbert added here. In these widgets, you can now configure also as status lines. Status line is very simple to configure. It's a select and a message. And you can show it here like a dashboard. And format it with HTML so it looks nice. Yeah. And regular expression in the format, validation format, in strings. You know, when you define a string, you can define minimum, maximum, and a validation format. This validation format before was just uppercase, lowercase, number, etc. But now you can define a regular expression to do the validation. Yeah? At this moment, it just works in ZK, yeah? In the UI. It's not validated in the backend.
That's done in the tables and columns, or where do you do that? Specifying the regex?
Here. Yeah, table and column. It's the same. It's the same field.
Okay.
It was the format.
Okay. Okay.
But here, the format is just for strings. You have the format. Yeah. This field, the format, value format. Yeah. So here it was the explanation about that. But now you can have a regular expression, and when the user enter a wrong value, the error message is very ugly. Yeah? It says value doesn't complain with this format, it shows the format. But you can take this regular expression and make it in message, add the regular expression to the message table, and write a nice message to the message. Yeah? Okay. What else do we have? Technical things. And on the technical side, we can export now the SQL as insert script. Yeah, you know that we already have been able to export here, and we can export CSV file, Excel files, but now we also have this insert scripts as archive. So that creates portable, I don't know, portable insert scripts. You can use those scripts in several databases because it doesn't use fixed IDs. It uses generated IDs on every insert. So it's I find it like an alternative for Tupac because we do that with Tupac for to move records in different databases. So now you can do it also with insert script. This one after migrate helper. I think I am going to talk more about this in another talk. But this is a new feature. After you do a migration, you can check if something that you customized was changed by the scripts. Yeah? Yeah. Generate model template is that we now have the generate model directly here. You know that before we needed to run a different program, but now it's here. Yeah? Right? And it generates the model classes. And this one also, inject context variables. I don't know if you already know this. We have the inject context variables.
Menu.
We have that in menu and window. Yeah. But now we also added two rows. I think it's Nicolas. Now 1,000 commits, I don't know. But yeah, this the context variable injected can be here. You can inject context variable when clicking a menu entry or when opening a window, but now it can be also added to rows. So you have here you have the context variable. So you can have, for example, this is an administrator. Something like that. And then when any user logins with this role, you will have this variable in context and you can do it. Show fields, hide fields, use it in customization. Tuning Windows performance. Yeah, these were a lot of sysconfig keys that control. Yeah, we had a problem. When a window had many records, 1 million records, sometimes the opening the window can crash the Postgres server. Yeah? And the users normally opened the window, it was slow, and they refresh and open it again, and then you have two big queries in background running in Postgres, and then three, and then Postgres crash. That happened. And the server we added a lot of controls to avoid that situation, and now the Postgres query have timeouts, the number of records to show is restricted, so we made the servers more resilient to these kind of things. We have also table partitioning. That is a feature that Oracle and Postgres have to improve performance, and we can define this directly in dictionary. We don't need to take Postgres about that. It's dictionary related. On security, debug added single sign-on. Single sign-on, and you added examples with Cognito and Azure. Cognito, Azure, enhancing added for OpenID. And OpenID covers mostly. Also, we added a feature that says dynamic filter per table. This is a filter that you add to any user in the system. But not to any user, you can control per role and per user to add like filters to a table. Or to everybody. This one also we found problems in some servers that if a plugin didn't start. When you have a plugin in a server, and for some reason the plugin doesn't start, the server didn't complain and started corrupting data. Yeah. It happened to us. We had a custom accounting for some orders, for example. Yeah? For some invoices. The custom accounting is in a plugin, and the plugin didn't start for some reason, but the server just ran with the original accounting. And it was hard to identify which invoices were affected and repos and everything like that. So we added a way to register in the system. This plugin needs to run for the server to start correctly. Yeah? Made it mandatory. So when we start the server, it checks the plugins that are mandatory, and it says, no, you don't have this plugin. Okay, so that's all. There are 100 more, but
Carlos, one question. Is there some functionality in regards to archiving or separating data from the operational database into another? So there are some really problematic tables like AD_changelog, right, which has a massive amount of data and blows out the database a lot. Is there a way to separate some of it into a different database instance?
We have made effort to create a plugins for that. I think we discussed earlier, right? Change log making as a factory. So what we have tried to do is like pulling this for the audit log into Cassandra database instead of keeping into Postgres SQL.
Okay.
But we want we want to finish 100% or not using in production at all, but we have done quite work on that. So if interested, we can publish the plugin and we can
Okay. Yeah.
so the answer is no, we don't have that, but Deepak has ideas.
So how we have done is like still making available the change log into your UI, but let's iDempiere first commit the change log as it is in a process database, and then scheduler move it into the Cassandra database. And when you are actually looking for sorry.
Sorry for that. You forget about this.
Thank you. Okay, so then whenever you are opening the changelog screen, correct, it will merge the changelog from Postgres database and Cassandra database and display in a single view.
Okay. Have you ever considered, now that we have JSON fields, to move to eliminate the change log and put it as a JSON that will create if you update? So it's a field like log in the same table, and you just update. addressing that in future versions.
That is well considered.
I think, but performance-wise, the current change of structure is better compared to if we are creating a JSON. Then we have to every time we have to modify that JSON, correct? We have to read it, so it is a multiple operation. So I think the current design is not replaceable by JSON in change.
But yeah, when you have those ideas, you just normally we do in Mattermost. We go to Mattermost and you say we have this idea, and we discuss and say it's good or it has these problems, and normally it comes up better idea at the end. But it's nice to have the ideas and discuss it openly, and normally we improve it. Or the worst can happen is we say, no, it's not such a good idea. Anyone else? No? Okay.
Coming back.
No.